Xin chào mừng mọi người đến với 28 Unique và Xen Giữa, nơi chúng ta sẽ cùng xen giữa vào cuộc sống, cảm xúc và hành trình của những vị khách mời có tầm ảnh hưởng. Tại đây thì chúng ta sẽ sense, tức là cảm nhận những câu chuyện thật, những trải nghiệm sâu sắc được kể bằng chính giọng nói và trái tim của khách mời của chúng ta. Và ngày hôm nay thì 28 Unique có một vinh dự đặc biệt. Vị khách mời của chúng ta ngày hôm nay là một người đại diện cho cái cầu nối quan trọng giữa hai nền văn hóa, hai thế giới, và cũng là một người mang trong mình rất nhiều góc nhìn thú vị về sự kết nối, phát triển bền vững và con người. So let's get started. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
It's good weather, not too hot. Nice summer in Hanoi.
You've been taking parts in a lot of interviews before, but this is probably your first time ever, taking part in a podcast. So
Yes.
how do you feeling like the difference between the interview, the normal interview, and the podcast?
It's more relaxed. We will have time, I hope, to go deep into your questions, your interests. And I look forward to having an interaction with the Vietnamese public
Yeah.
that I don't have the chance to have in normal interviews.
Oh, that's great. We have a lot of audience. It's a young generations here in Vietnam. And of course, I want them to understand more about you, about your personal life, about the missions, and about what is actually your main missions here in Vietnam to support Vietnam in the future. So we may start by asking that you've been to Vietnam many years ago, but with different missions and with different roles. Back in the time you was a traveler here, right? You've been traveling to Vietnam in the
Yes,
past,
the first time I came to Vietnam was in 1997.
1997.
So 28 years ago, the country has changed a lot.
A lot. At that time, in fact, that's the time I wasn't born yet. I haven't born yet. So I'm feeling like I'm witnessing a historical, a landmark here in front of me. And I'm just keep wondering, how do you see Vietnam back in those days in 1997?
For me, it was a very historic country because you could feel that time hadn't passed in Vietnam. I was traveling in the north, in the countryside. It was sometimes necessary to travel by boat on the rivers because there were no roads. And I could meet people, especially the older generation, that was still speaking French. So it was a bit of a travel in time already for me in 1997. Very exotic, very different, fascinating country.
So you might witness a lot of changes, huge changes.
Absolutely. It was very active, very dynamic, mainly bicycles in Hanoi. A lot of historical buildings still standing up, no modern buildings as we see today around here or in this tower in the Lotte Center. And people were already very optimistic, looking at the future, believing in the capacity of the country to develop. And that's what we saw afterwards. I came back several years later to negotiate the opening to the world for trade flows with the WTO accession, the accession to the World Trade Organization. And this worked. I'm here back today in a completely different country. It's Vietnam's moment now after 30, 50 years of hard work. The country has proven that it could join the most advanced societies in the world.
So I can say that you were a part of helping. You are a huge part in helping this country to grow, because you are the member of the WTO, the World Trade Organization members.
It was our intention at the time to support the development of Vietnam, to support free trade, and to help Vietnam not just by development assistance. The EU is the first donor in grants and has been for a very long time to Vietnam, but to do it through trade so that Vietnam could produce, develop, and not just receive assistance. And that is what worked.
I love it. I mean, I'm sitting right here. I am talking to the person that, that I could say that taking a small part in helping me to grow such a day. I mean, in particular for me, and also in general for the entire country. So I would like to say thank you for your support throughout the entire time.
Well, thank you, but it's a great satisfaction for us, for me personally, to see how successful, how much of a model Vietnam has been in development for other countries in the region and across the world. And it is in our mutual benefit because we have a lot of European investments here. Our companies are producing, exporting, investing, and this is for the benefit also of European growth and prosperity.
It's great. I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, throughout the sharing, I can feel like you love your job. You love your diplomatic careers, right?
I do.
I can really feel that. I can really feel that you really love going to nations and helping them to be a better versions of themselves.
And it's not just supporting Vietnam, but it's also developing good relationship and understanding between the people of Vietnam and the European Union and defending together our common principles, values for a better world tomorrow. We both want peace, security around the world. We want growth, prosperity, sustainable development, climate action. Both the EU and Vietnam have committed to be climate neutral in 2050.
2050.
We are both depending a lot on free trade, open markets, on multilateralism, on the rule of law to make sure that it is not might that is imposing its will on other countries, but that it is the right, the international law that is fairly defending the rights of all countries to be sovereign and to develop as they want to develop. So we have a lot in common between the European Union and Vietnam, and I believe that by working together, we can build a better world.
I see it because you're living here in Vietnam for roughly, 2 years now, because you were delegated as the EU ambassador to Vietnam 2 years ago in September 2023. So what was your very first impressions when you coming back to this country? I mean, you've been here 3 times, 1997, 2005, right?
Yes.
Member of the WTO, and also now 2023. That was a huge gap there. So what are the main changes that you can see after the years, after all long years?
Of course, I was very impressed by the level of development, by how far the country had succeeded in growing, in prospering, in training its young people to be modern citizens of the world and contribute to their society. But I must say that something surprised and pleased me, struck me even more than the level of development. It was the contrast I could see between Europe of today and Vietnam today. Vietnam is such an optimistic, dynamic, positive country, convinced that tomorrow will be better than today, that its young people have faith in their future, in the future of their country. Right now in Europe, we've been developed for a very, very long time, and we face challenges. We have an aging society. We are not sure that tomorrow will be so much better than today. Today is actually already very good. So there is a bit of gloom in the young generations in Europe today. And coming here and seeing the optimism of the young generations, the dynamism of the country was refreshing and was really striking.
From the sharing, I believe that the young generation, the Gen Z generations here in particular, right, will be the main part in helping our country to develop more in the future. And I can see from the sharing, I have a good faith in believing that our country will prosper in the near future. I hope that in 2050, when we reach to that missions that you just said, I believe that at that time Vietnam will be one of the top countries in terms of economics, in terms of national security, and also in, let's say, environmental aspects, I believe.
I have absolutely no doubt about that. I've been following Vietnam for the past 20 to 30 years. Already in 24, 25, when I was negotiating the WTO accession, I could see how competent the people were in the public administration, how dedicated they were, how well educated the people across the country were. So the basis is there. Another thing that is very important for the future of the country is research and innovation. That's very important to me because before coming here, I was in charge of Horizon Europe, the research and innovation program of the European Union, the biggest research program in the world. And I'm convinced that this is the key to our future growth and prosperity. And Vietnam is investing as much as we are now in research and innovation. It will be the key to the growth and the success of Vietnam in the future. So I have no doubt that Vietnam will be a developed country. The objective set by Vietnam itself is 2045. We will see if it's 2045, a bit before or a bit after, but it will get there. And I hope very much that it will be climate neutral by 2050. We are doing our best in Europe to reach that objective, and we are on track right now. We are supporting Vietnam through the Just Energy Transition Partnership of the G7, which the EU is coordinating for the G7 and other donors. So we are investing in renewable energy. We are supporting Vietnam in getting off fossil fuels and in particular coal dependence for the future. So yes, I'm very optimistic about the future of this country, I can tell you.
I heard that you mentioned a lot about the tools, the Horizon Europe and the carbon neutral by 2050. They are the tools that in helping Vietnam in developing in the upcoming 20 years. But I think we will put that aside and discuss a little bit later, because I want to get back about you as a personal life more in the very beginning, in the very initial state of today's podcast, because I know you love Vietnam the way you learn Vietnamese, right? The way you learn Vietnamese, the way you learn how to use chopstick. I saw some of the videos you try to learn how to use chopstick. So I do believe that you have such a huge compassion, such a tremendous love for this country. Is it true?
Absolutely. I love Vietnam. I love the country, its landscapes, its food, its history, its culture, its people. And again, the vibe that we have here in Hanoi, where I live, the very different vibe we have in Ho Chi Minh City in the south, and the diversity of its provinces, of its cultures, of its gastronomy, the combination of tradition and being always turned toward the future and building the Vietnam of tomorrow. It's a fascinating country. It's the country to be today in the world, I believe.
How many provinces have you visited around our country? I mean, be 2 years, and it could be more. So how many provinces have you visited, and do you expect to visit any of them more in the future?
Absolutely. I am traveling a lot in Vietnam to discover the provinces. We are very lucky to support many different development projects across the country. So this gives me the opportunity to visit provinces. And during my holidays, I also very often stay with the family in Vietnam, going to the mountains, to the beach, to different cities. So it depends if you count with the old system of 63 provinces or the new system. But I've visited about 2/3 of the provinces. So I'm halfway in my stay and I visited 2/3 of the provinces. So it may be possible for me to visit all of them by the end of my mandate here in Vietnam.
It's such a pity when talk about this, but actually I'm a Vietnamese, but I cannot compare to you because I haven't even visited that much of provinces that you're mentioning. So throughout the trip here in Vietnam, you're mentioning a lot of mountains and beaches. So which one do you prefer? And is there any provinces that remains the most impressions, the deepest impressions for you throughout your visit there?
Yes, I love so many different provinces. The mountains are very impressive. Tomorrow, actually, I will go to Fansipan
Oh, that's
for the
lovely.
first time.
For the first
But
time.
I've been already to Laogai, to Dien Bien. I've been to the Central Highlands. The beaches are very beautiful. My daughters love to go to Phuquoc and to Nha Trang. So we are going on a regular basis to these two destinations. But also, of course, the Halong Bay is one of the most impressive landscapes in the world.
Breathtaking, right?
Yes. So I love all of those areas. But if you ask me where my heart beats, it's the Mekong Delta.
Mekong Delta.
There are
Is
not
there
so
any
many
reason?
beaches, not so many mountains, but there is the rivers, the very different atmosphere, hot, humid, a very slow rhythm, many flowers, very diverse birds and animals, fruits that we don't see elsewhere. So for me, the Mekong Delta is special. And when I'm there, I feel in a different world. It's, for a European that I am, perhaps the most exotic, the most different part of Vietnam. And that's why every time I'm going to the Mekong Delta, I'm shivering a bit and I'm feeling I'm in a special place.
Feeling like you are a slow living person, right?
Actually, not at all. I have a very trepidant life. I never stop. I am extremely busy. And even when I could rest, I don't, because there are so many things I want to do. So that's the kind of person I am. But precisely because of that, I have this secret dream of sometime, someday, taking it slow and relaxing. And that's what the Mekong Delta transmits as an image, as a specific vibe to me. So that's why it corresponds not perhaps to who I am, but to what I would dream of being able to do one day.
I see. So let's talk a bit about, because you mentioned you have a lot of works right now, right? I know being a person, being an ambassador to Vietnam, even EU ambassador to Vietnam, is a very big title. When the Vietnamese, when we heard of your name, we heard of your title, we were like, we would like to say it like, wow. I mean, I couldn't even imagine that I have today talking to you, because I know you are so busy throughout the day, you know, doing your task, right? So aside from your work every single day, what do you usually do after works to relax, to recharge after a very nerve-wracking day of work?
Well, what I like to do whenever I have time is to travel and explore the world. That's what I always wanted to do since I was a child. I wanted to go out of my city, Paris, and to discover other people, other cultures, other countries. We have only one life. We have a wonderful world, and I want to experience as much as possible of it. I love also to go to the cinema, and it's a bit the same. A film, for me, enables us to enter into a different life, a different country sometimes, a different time. And that's an exploration of sorts that I enjoy very much. I like art, going to the opera, to the concert, going to exhibitions, to museums. But as you said, I have very, very little time to do all of that because I'm so busy at work. Nevertheless, I'm lucky that thanks to my work and during my work, I have the occasion to travel, to visit projects in Vietnam, to go to other countries sometimes. And I'm very often invited to cultural events here in the country. So even if I don't have a lot of time to do it during my leisure time, I can enjoy a bit of it during my work time.
Oh, you just remind me of, just crossed my mind real quick. Like I have scrolled through your Facebook account, your personal account, and I saw you post tons of images of you attending, participating in events. That's, you know, that's part of the delegation of EU ambassador to Vietnam. So I do think I saw you are very happy. You are happy attending those events. So does it job being a ambassador to Vietnam really make you feel proud of?
Absolutely, and very, very happy. I love every minute of it. It's very diverse. I have to manage the embassy, the delegation of the European Union, so it's a management work. The relations with the Vietnamese authorities, so it's a lot of interaction, discussions, negotiations sometimes, and I like to negotiate. As you know, I was a negotiator for trade agreements in previous postings. It is also working with the provinces on development projects, working with the different administrations and ministries on how to foster people-to-people exchange, meeting the people, and also, as you say, sometimes going to cultural events. And as EU ambassador, I have also this specific role of coordinating the ambassadors and the embassies of the member states of the European Union. So we are acting here not just as one embassy or representation, but as a collection of embassies, as a family of Europeans. And that's also a very interesting part of my job. Communication and interaction with the people is also great. And that's why I'm feeding, as you said, my Facebook page with the events I am participating in. This is a way for me to have a direct contact with Vietnamese, and very often young Vietnamese who write to me, and I try to reply to all of them so that I can feel also the life, the hopes, the opinions of the people of all generations and all provinces here across the country.
That is lovely, to be honest. And thank you so much for helping us. And thank you so much for always by our side, our young generations, to help them to grow. But let's get back a little bit, because you were mentioning about your daughter. Do you have two daughters, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you also have your families here in Vietnam when you start working here 2 years ago. So how did they adapt to the life in Hanoi? I mean, because you have moved your entire families here with you. Because
Yes.
you have such...
That's also a busy part of my life, because I'm a single parent with two daughters. So when I don't work, I take care of them. I go play with them, on holidays with them, teach them and help them study. They are both 11 years old. They are twins.
Twins.
They love Vietnam. They love Asia. They don't want to go back to Europe. They are a fan of Vietnamese and Asian culture. As many Vietnamese friends they have here, they are fan of K-pop. So I have sometimes to look for K-pop tickets on the internet, which is very difficult to get. But we managed to go and see a concert of Baby Monster in Ho Chi Minh City a couple of weeks ago. So that's also an interesting part of my life, to be the parent of two young girls who are enjoying themselves so much here in Asia.
So how you balance it? I mean, you told us you have such a busy schedule, such a busy appointment all around the day, throughout the weeks, the months and years. So how can you balance it between your work life and your normal life?
It's a matter of organization. To be ready in the morning, to get them prepared and go to school, then to go to work, be available when there are parents, teachers conferences or other events at school. One of my daughters was playing in a musical. The other one was in the backstage crew of that same musical. So we go to see those events at school as well. So it's also being part of the community here of living with a lot of Vietnamese parents at school. They have friends from all over the world in the international school they are going to, but in particular from Vietnam. So it's another aspect that enables me also to see how society functions here.
I can see that you have transfer. Let's use the word transfer. You transfer your love to Vietnam to your daughters because you are single parent, and being the fact that single parent is not always easy, right? It's very hard, but you can be here taking care of your employees, taking care of your job in the most fluent way, and you can still taking care of them and grow them into the better versions of themselves and to be like yours. You are a epitome. Let's use the word epitome, a role model for them.
To be what they want to be and to develop into the persons they want to be and they will enjoy to be. They will have their lives. I don't push them to do the same as I'm doing or as I've done. They have their own personalities. And they're still young. We don't know what they will grow up into in the future.
So you were saying that they love living here in Vietnam, and they don't want to come back to France, right? France. I'm sorry, France. You live in France, and you are French, right?
I am French. I was born and raised in Paris. But then I joined the European Union with the headquarters in Brussels, Belgium. So I lived actually longer now in my life in Belgium, in Brussels, than in Paris.
Oh, really?
And my daughters grew up in Belgium before they came here to Hanoi.
But I just keep wondering, like, why don't they want to return to the European Union? Because of the food or something, or because of the culture of Vietnam or something?
Yes, they were very happy in Europe, and Brussels is a great place. But they have friends now here, and they want to stay with their friends. That's one thing. They love the culture, the music, the traveling in Asia, in Vietnam. We have the habits of going on holidays, as I was saying, to Nha Trang, to Phu Quoc with friends. We go sometimes to Japan and Korea, which they love as well. So they feel here that they are in their elements now. It's their culture. It has become their culture. It's their environment, their habits, and they have their friends here. So they want to stay as long as possible.
So after your diplomatic careers, I mean, everybody have to have their break time until particular time of their entire career. So do you plan of living here after you end up your diplomatic careers?
Well, as an ambassador, I have a mandate of a certain number of years. So in a couple of years, I will have to move on. I will either go back to headquarters or, as I hope and as my daughters hope, try to get another ambassadorial position in another country. And if you ask my daughter, they want to go to an Asian country, not too far from here, so that they can visit Vietnam and visit their friends.
I get it. Okay. That's the reason why you love to pursue diplomatic careers, because you want to meet people, you want to negotiate, right? Okay.
Yes, it's about discovering the world, exploring. So I always wanted to work in international relations. I believe in the European Union and the construction peacefully of a continent where countries work together instead of fighting against each other, as we saw in the 20th century. So for me, the big design, the big objective of our generation in Europe was really to build the EU. And that's why I wanted to work for the EU. And for the EU in particular, I enjoy working in foreign relations with other countries so that they see what we are trying to do in the EU and so that we can develop better relations with countries around the world.
So did anyone I mean, let's say they are a mentor for you, guided you to pursue this diplomatic careers in your back in the very early stage of your careers?
I wouldn't say it's a person, but it's a place and an experience that's triggered that interest for the diplomatic career.
Can you tell me more about that experience?
Yes, when I was 23 years old, I was already a French official at the time, not yet EU official, and I participated in an exchange of officials between France and Japan. So for 1 year, I worked in the Japanese administration for the Japanese government, and I had a completely different life. It was in 1992, 1993, so there was no internet, no newspapers or television from Europe over there. I was completely immersed in a different society in Asia, in Japan. I lived a second life experience almost. And I thought to myself, it would be so great to contribute to connecting Japan of the time and Europe and to work for international relations. So that was really that experience in Japan, my visit at the time to the EU offices in Tokyo that decided me to pursue that diplomatic career.
And that also sparked your very first love to Asian countries, right?
Yes, it was love at first sight, and it was unexpected in a sense, because when I was young, I had no particular interest or attraction or knowledge of Asia. We were living in Paris with my parents and my family. We traveled a lot, but always in Europe. And when I started traveling as a student, I went to the United States.
That's lovely.
And I didn't somehow get any knowledge of Asia because I wasn't particularly interested. Also, when watching television or going to the films, we had a lot of Hollywood movies at the time in Europe, but very little from Asia. So when I arrived in Japan, because I participated in this exchange, I arrived in a completely unknown world.
Unknown world.
I told you I was in the US as a student. When I arrived in New York the first time, I had the impression I had been there so many times before because I saw it in TV series, in films. But when I arrived in Japan, everything was new and surprising and fascinating. And yes, it was love at first sight.
It triggered your curiosity.
Absolutely.
To know more about Asian countries.
And it corresponded, I think, to my personality. I must have had some Asian genes somewhere, but somehow I feel at ease here in a society in Vietnam or in Japan or in other Asian countries where people act collectively, respect each other, have a certain humility and sense of taking care of the others. So there is a kind of collective approach in Asia, whereby in Europe we are more individualistic. That's fitted my personality, and that made me feel at ease, like fish in water, the first day I arrived in Asia.
All right. Feel like you having somewhere, your roots somewhere here in Asia, right?
Maybe in a previous life.
I know. Okay, so we've discussed a lot, and you help us a lot in understanding about you. So let's get back to the time when you come back to the Vietnam 2 years ago, when you were delegated and when you was assigned as the AU ambassador to Vietnam. Because I know you have this love to Asian country, you have this love to Vietnam. So when you heard your name pointed as the ambassador, straight to that point, do you remember that feelings, and how did you feel back in that time, being called for coming to Vietnam, living here for the next 4 years?
Yes.
How do you feel?
It was a rush of happiness and pride to go to that country that I really wanted to go, I applied to come to Vietnam. So it's not that it came as an accident. I really wanted to come here. And when I obtained what I wanted, this position as EU ambassador, I felt a sense of pride, responsibility also, because it's a huge responsibility to take on as a role. Yes, a rush of happiness and a sense of flow of being who I wanted to be.
So let's say, is your parents? I'm sorry, but your parents, your daughter, your let's say your belongings, everybody, when they knew about the news that you were selected to come over here, how did they feel for you?
Well, I think my family back in Paris had a mixed feeling of pride, of course. They were happy for me and they were proud of me getting this position, but also mixed with sadness of seeing me go so far away from France and Paris and from them, especially for my aging mother, who came here to visit me already twice in Vietnam since I arrived, but who would have loved me to stay closer to her. For my daughters, we had visited Vietnam together on holidays before. It was part of exploring, also seeing if it would be fit for the family.
They were excited, right?
Yes, they were also a bit excited, a bit sad to leave their friends behind in Belgium. Yes, it was a mix of being nervous to go to an unknown, quasi-unknown country and environment, and excited to discover and to see how it would be. And now, as we were saying, they just don't want to move away from Vietnam.
I know. This country got so much love. They create so much attractiveness to everybody, even tourists, and even for everybody who had a chance to come and visit our country. So that would be one of the key aspects of. I was telling everybody of my friends, my pals, my international pals, my friends, when they're coming here, they don't want to live here for even 1 second, and they really, really upset when they have to return to Europe, where they don't experience things that here, Vietnam, we have it. So let's rewind back to 20 years ago, in 2004 and 2005, right? You were a member of the WTO, a sessions negotiating team to bring Vietnam to the world. That was part of your love, I know that. So looking back now, how have you see that one of the memories? Do you have any memories of that time? The time when Vietnam started to officially grow and officially, put their foot in its development, its developing path.
At the time, I was a trade negotiator for services, meaning financial services, telecommunications, construction services. I mean, a very large part of trade that is very technical. And I was negotiating trade agreements at the WTO, multilaterally, but also bilaterally with many different countries. I must say that in my recollection, Vietnam was one of the most difficult and most satisfactory negotiation, because I had in front of me experienced, competent negotiators who knew what they were talking about, who were defending very, very strongly the interests of their country, who were well organized with the different ministries in charge of the legislation in the sectors we were negotiating. So it was a very difficult negotiation because we had very strong and good negotiators in front of us, but at the same time very satisfactory because there was mutual respect, precisely because there was competence on both sides, because there was a mutual willingness to do something that was in the interest of Vietnam and its development, as well as in the interest, as far as we are concerned, of the business opportunities for European companies. And at the end of the day, we got, I think, a very good deal. We see the result today. Vietnam developed. Europe is very present in the country, and everybody was happy. And if you are asking me for a particular memory, it was the last round of negotiation.
Last round.
When we were negotiating the most sensitive and difficult aspects. We spent 3 nights.
3 nights.
The lead negotiators at minister level here in Vietnam, and the commissioner for trade from the European Union, and the head negotiator and myself. 3 nights, in particular the last night on telecommunication services, discussing very, very detailed and precise conditions for the opening of the Vietnamese market to foreign companies. That was exhausting, but that was a great memory. And I very vividly remember the last night we had a gala dinner offered by the Vietnamese government in the government house. So very, very good dinner. And after it, but I hadn't slept for the past 2 nights. And we got a bit of wine and very good Vietnamese food. And then we had to go back to the negotiation in the middle of the night with the minister in charge of telecommunications. And in the morning, after a 3rd sleepless night and an agreement, we came back to the office of the EU delegation with the trade commissioner. And I was so exhausted and so unwell after the combination of the good food and wine and the lack of sleep that I threw up. I went to the bathroom to throw up. And this is one of the events that everybody remembered for years afterwards, that we were putting so much of ourselves, not thinking anymore about our health, about our sleep, but we did it well, and everybody was happy on both sides because we had found an agreement that was in our mutual interests.
So it felt like you remember it very clearly. You have a very clear picture of that day. So I believe that it's one of the best memories you ever had in your diplomatic careers, wasn't it?
It's something that, yes, I will remember the day I retire. It will be one of the highlights of my career, for sure.
Yeah. So I noticed you mentioning about your 3 sleepless nights. And I feel like the Vietnamese government, I think you have underwent through a roller coaster emotions, feelings, of mixed feelings, because you are now sleepless. And you are treated with party. You're going very up, very high, you're very happy. You're really satisfied with that. And you have to return that to the negotiating table. And you have such mixed feelings around it. So is it now, that feeling? Do you experience that sort of mixed feelings when you become the EU ambassador here, when you go into the government office, right? You just came in like a week ago, right?
Yes. I think there is a similar feeling in the sense that we see things in the same way. We are aligned in what we want to do together for the relationship between the EU and Vietnam and for the future of the country. There is still, like at the time, this sense of respect because we are reliable, stable partners for each other. We have been consistent in our good relations and cooperations for decades between the EU and Vietnam. And I don't think there are a lot of countries that Vietnam can rely on as much as on the EU in this sense. Of course, we don't have the same all-encompassing negotiation. And we are in a different position where Vietnam can assert itself, has a more balanced relation. At the time, Vietnam was wanting to join the WTO, and they had to negotiate and get the acceptance from all major WTO members, the EU being one of them, but also other big players. So it was a very, very harsh negotiation for Vietnam. And I was all the more admirative that Vietnam was not just giving it away, but was fighting in order to enter into the WTO, but to enter into the WTO with the right conditions that would support the real sustainable development of Vietnam. So a lot of respect and admiration for the country already at the time.
So everybody puts a lot of effort. Vietnamese, also the Vietnamese negotiator, and also from you guys from your side,
yes,
put a lot of efforts in finding the mutual agreement, the mutual common on both sides. So during your term here in Vietnam, let's go back to your time now. So during the term here in Vietnam, which areas are your priorities in forwarding the relationship between the European Union and Vietnam?
I would say the first one is trade and investment. It is also the first priority of Vietnam because it is the key to its development and to its objective of being a developed country in 20 years being achieved. So we want to invest more high-tech here in Vietnam. We want to ensure that our companies have access to the markets. And we want to ensure also that they support not just the sustainable development of Vietnam, but also its economic security. We have trusted vendors in many different fields that can help Vietnam negotiate successfully the digital transition, the green transition, and do it in a way that will ensure its strategic autonomy and its independence as a sovereign nation.
Because I have done research about you, and one of your strengths you mentioning was you have a very good perspective in doing research and innovation. That was your main strength. So what areas do you think that you can put your foot in and helping Vietnam to grow in other aspects?
So trade and investment is the first aspect. As you are saying, research and innovation is an area where increasingly there is a mutual interest to cooperate. Vietnam, for its level of development, is one of the most innovative countries already. They are participating in Horizon Europe, our research program, which is open to the world, and we want this participation to grow in the future. I am discussing with the Ministry of Science and Technology to see how we can develop a real roadmap to reinforce the cooperation between Europe and Vietnam in this field. As I was telling you, in Vietnam, like in Europe, research and innovation is the key to our future growth and prosperity. We don't have a lot of natural resources in Europe and in Vietnam, but we have brains. We have well-educated young people who have ideas, who can do research, innovation, and ensure that their companies here in Vietnam, in the European Union, are more competitive and are leading in their sectors in the world. And by cooperating together, we can succeed. So research and innovation is a new area, I would say, of cooperation. And when we upgrade our partnership, because we want to upgrade our partnership between the EU and Vietnam to an even higher level, this will take an important place.
So you were mentioning about education. So speaking of that a little bit, we know that there are a lot of students here in Vietnam. A lot of students are studying abroad in the European countries. And I know that you have a scholarship for Vietnamese students. I didn't remember about the name. Can you tell me about?
Yes, we have the European Erasmus Plus scholarships, which enable Vietnamese students to come and study in Europe. And we have many other national schemes by our individual member states. So a lot of Vietnamese students are coming to study in Europe. Already, when I was a student myself, I had in high school, at university, always a few Vietnamese students in the class. They were amongst the most serious and hardworking and successful students, and they still are today. It's in your genes, in your culture. So we appreciate Vietnamese students. They are welcome in Europe, And I can but encourage them to continue to come to study in Europe. It is one of the most welcoming continents for Vietnamese students. And it is, maybe I'm not objective because I'm European, but still it is also one of the most diverse, culturally and historically interesting continents, one of the most advanced in high technologies. So you can study at the best universities there for a reasonable price, because we are a society in Europe where we subsidize our university system in order to enable all students to participate and to study. We have an inclusive approach that leaves no one behind. And so I believe it is affordable, it is interesting, and it is the best place to live and to explore. When you're in Europe, you can take the train and change country in a matter of hours, even for one day. So you can have a wonderful experience in Europe.
I think that was because we live only one life. So for those who have that opportunities to study and to get that Erasmus scholarship, as you were mentioning, that will be a very good opportunity for them, in particular, to immerse themselves in the environment that, like you guys, an unknown world for them. Like you haven't been the unknown world to Asia, like that. So, and I think that they are the key elements of Vietnam, as they, after the studying, they return to the country, and that was the key element. They bring the brains and they bring what they've learned here to return and develop the country.
They bring new knowledge, new technologies, research and innovation from Europe that will support the development of the country, that will support their own personal development. They also bring with them back the knowledge of Europe and of a different continent. And that's, for me, one of the keys to the future good relations between the European Union and Vietnam. By living in each other's countries, we can understand each other better, make friendships at a young age, and build the cooperation and the friendship between our peoples for the future.
So do you have any advice, any recommendation for them so they can make the most out of their experience there in Europe?
Well, my first recommendation is go to the European Union. It's the best place for you to study. My second recommendation is, once you're there, get out of your box, both academically. You may be studying in a very specific field, do a PhD in, I don't know, a very, very specialized sector, but try to explore beyond that area. See other departments in your university, other universities, through networks of students, through friends, so that you have a broader view of the academic fields, and get out of the box also in terms of geographical location. And again, Europe is the best place for that. Once you're in the European Union, you're in the Schengen zone, you can travel freely without passport. We have very well-connected countries. So if you're studying in country X, you can, let's say Germany, you can be a weekend in France, a week in Italy, another weekend in Denmark, and see completely different cultures, landscapes, histories, languages. And that's enriching, and that will stay with you for your whole life.
Your whole life, yeah. My friend, she is now studying in Europe, and she was telling me one very key important aspect of that is the flight tickets. I mean, the fees for that is absolutely cheap and is so affordable for people to go around the Shenzhen, the continent. And she's having like, making people travel there is even easier than making money there. So that will be a very good experience for the student. And I believe that there will be a tremendous trend, an increasing trend in upcoming years for more Vietnamese students to come and study. So do you think of, planning, negotiating any other scholarship and scheme to offer more to the Vietnamese students? Because the education now is very developed. It's very developed here in Vietnam. We collab with a lot of university. We collab with a lot of institutional. So, do you plan of having more scholarship and more scheme to this official student, more appearances of Vietnamese student there in the European Union?
Well, one thing is, of course, to increase the number of scholarships at European and national level and agreements between universities of Europe and of Vietnam. That is depending also on the budget that we have. So there are limited prospects, but still we are working in this direction. But then the second aspect to keep in mind is that if I take the European scholarships, Erasmus+, there is no quota per country. So if you have more Vietnamese students applying with good applications, you will get more of those scholarships compared to students from other countries. Already today, Vietnam is one of the countries in Asia that participates most to Erasmus. So they are very successful and they're very good students. But if it's well spread, if the word goes to universities, if there are more good applications, there will be more Vietnamese going to Europe. So I encourage the people who are listening to us today and who have an interest to look for Erasmus possibilities, ask their international departments in their universities and apply, try it.
Thank you so much for helping us understand more about the goal future and also about your prospect of helping us, helping the country to develop in the upcoming years. I remember there is one key that you mentioning at the very beginning of the talk about the goal, the missions to reach that renewable energy goal by 2050. So what are the key elements and what are the main factors that the European Union help Vietnam and contribute to reach that mission?
Well, we have to remind perhaps our audience and young people of the context. We have only one planet. And we need this planet to survive if we want humanity to survive. So we need to ensure that climate change is not accelerating and that we have a limitation across the world of CO2 emissions as fast as possible. In that context, the objectives that the EU and Vietnam have set themselves to be climate neutral by 2050 is very, very important. And for us, the fact that Vietnam, still a developing country, is aware of its contribution potentially and its responsibility as a nation of this planet to contribute to climate action is impressive, is admirable, and is something that we want to support also as a model for other countries in the region and in the developing world. So we have this Just Energy Transition Partnership between developed countries of the G7 and a few other donors and Vietnam, whereby we bring 15 billion euro to the country to help develop renewable energy.
Really? 15 billion euros?
Yes. It's a lot, but we need much more actually to become climate neutral, but it's an important, very important contribution. By developing renewable energy, and in Vietnam there is a huge potential. You have a lot of mountains we were discussing with a lot of water coming from the mountains, so hydropower that we are working on. We have a flagship project right now in Bac Ai, where we are, yes, in the south of the country, where we are working on a hydropower plant in order to build a lift for the water to bring it up the mountain so that even in the dry season, we have a reservoir with water that can feed into the hydroelectric plant.
I know.
There is a lot of sun in this country, so we can develop solar. There is a lot of wind. And when we look at the coastline, it's a coastline with a very large continental shelf where we can easily plant windmills. There is a lot of wind along that coastline. So there is a huge potential for renewable energy. By having more renewable energy, we can get off the dependence on fossil fuels. Yeah. By the way, it's not only a way to become climate neutral and to contribute to climate action, but it's also a way to become independent and strategically autonomous in terms of energy production, because fossil fuels you have to import, whereas the wind, the sun, and the water, you have it here in the country.
It's natural.
It's Vietnamese. It's natural and it's Vietnamese. Both aspects, I believe, are very important for the future of this country. So we are working together in the renewable energy field with the Ministry of Industry and Trade and other ministries and provinces. And we very much hope that we can together, for the sake of Vietnam, but also for the sake of the planet, reach that objective together.
The objective is always about carbon neutral, cut down 100% on the carbon footprint.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, so how did you balance? I mean, I know that we have to sacrifice economics and finances for that as well, because we know that without, we are still a lot dependent on carbon and fossil fuel on developing the country, because you know there's a lot of cars going around. Everything is still, I mean, and electricity, everything, it's still produced using fossil fuel, and we have a mission that we still have to keep the economics to growth, like we are doing. So how can we balance it between the economics and the carbon neutral mission?
Well, that's one thing that we learned in Europe in going early into green energy. It's not a sacrifice, and it's not a choice or a balance to find between economic development and sustainability and climate action on the other side. Actually, it is an investment into our future, into our autonomy and independence, and an investment into green and affordable energy. And we see that it creates a lot of business opportunities and growth. So Europe has proven that you can grow economically together with becoming green and doing this green transition that is absolutely necessary for the planet. So it's not a choice we have to make between economic development and sustainability and green transition. The two go together. We will not be able to grow if we are not among the first ones that go into those green technologies and new green industry opportunities.
I see it. So because I do research about you, I would like to understand more about you before this podcast. So I kind of read through a lot of your articles and also about your biography and stuff about the missions of the European Union delegation here in Vietnam. And I noticed one very important thing, that you have the tools. You have 5 tools that you can promote that mission, that we can reach to that mission. So what are that 5 tools that you are working on?
I would say the most important tools that we have at our disposal for the relationship between the EU and Vietnam are first the many agreements we have together, and in particular the FTA, the Free Trade Agreements, that enables us to grow exports and investments between the two sides. Our Free Trade Agreement entered into force in 2020, 5 years ago, and since then it has increased our trade flows between the two sides by 40%. Vietnam has become our first trading partner in the region, despite not being the biggest economy. And it is our 16th trading partner worldwide, despite the distance between the EU and Vietnam. So that has worked very well for the benefit of both sides. Another important tool in the field of climate action is the Just Energy Transition Partnership I was mentioning, investing into renewable energy here, producing affordable, clean, green, and Vietnamese electricity. A third element I could mention are the programs that enable us to exchange people in science, research, innovation through Horizon Europe, where we have a unique program, the biggest in the world, that is open to the participation of foreign researchers, in particular Vietnamese. Most research programs across the world are national and concentrate on their national scientists. We believe that to be at the forefront of research, we need to attract the best brains, the best researchers, and make them work together. And that's why we have this collective, cooperative Horizon Europe program, and the Vietnamese researchers are already participating significantly in this program. Another exchange program is Erasmus, we were talking about for the students. One bilateral program in an area we haven't talked about, and I would like to underline, is peace and security across the world. We both want stable, peaceful regions here around Vietnam and around the European Union. This is increasingly challenging. And we have with Vietnam a unique agreement called Framework Participation Agreement that enables peacekeeping operations of the EU in Africa, for instance, to welcome soldiers from Vietnam that cooperate to peacekeeping in those regions. So we are cooperating. This is just one example, but we are cooperating also through training of military personnel here in Vietnam. We want to ensure that there is peace, stability, respect of international rule around Vietnam, in the East Sea in particular. It is in our interest. We have 40% of EU imports worldwide that sail through the East Sea, and 25% of our exports. We want also to ensure stability and peace around Europe. And now, as you know, we have a lot of challenges there. So we need to work together. So those tools that I've mentioned are very important. We have the largest number of bilateral agreements between the EU and Vietnam than we have with any other Asian country. So it's quite remarkable that Vietnam is at the center, the forefront of our Indo-Pacific strategy and our cooperation in this region.
And with the geographical locations of Vietnam, Vietnam also play a very important role in helping you, the European Union, to reach that goals as well, right?
Yes.
So a very one last thing I want to discuss is because we going through a lot to the EVFTA, the free trade agreement, and all the goals for carbon neutral by 2050. So I remember there is one very key important factors is if we focus too much in the fact that the economics, to develop the economics and to develop the country, we may forget about the cultural aspect of the entire country. And I did notice, I noticed one very important thing about the European Union is you guys still develop your country in a very fascinating way, but you still remain the most out of your culture throughout history. So how do you think you will help Vietnam to remain this in the future, even though it's still, grow the economics?
This is an extremely important aspect and very dear to our heart. Vietnam and the EU are also united by the fact that they are amongst the oldest countries in the world with the longest history, the richest cultures. We are very proud on both sides, and rightly so, of our cultural heritage in the EU, in Vietnam, and we want to preserve it also because it is one of our strengths. It is by keeping our traditions, by researching our history, by learning from our past, by preserving it for new generations, that we can know where we are coming from, what our ancestors have learned and can teach us, and how we can look into the future. So we cooperate also culturally. I'm very happy when we can organize film festivals, cultural activities, performances at the opera here in Hanoi or down in Ho Chi Minh City. We want to display European culture. We want to help preserve Vietnamese culture, and we want to create possibilities for interaction between European and Vietnamese culture. One initiative that we are taking this year, for instance, is the EU-Vietnam Sustainable Design Awards. So we are encouraging and inviting architects, product designers, communication designers, to come here to Vietnam, to work with Vietnamese designers, to learn from each other, and we can see how these contributions and cooperation between cultures spark new ideas because we have different perspectives, and this is what creativity requires. So we can build on our cultures, learn from each other to preserve our traditions and learn from them, and at the same time confront them to cooperate and create new things, new cultural ideas, events, designs for the future and for the relationship between our two countries.
So from your sharing, I understand that the young generations is also playing a very important part in that as well. So do you have any message to the young generation here in Vietnam so they can keep up the our footstep of their predecessor, of the older generations, to keep the growing of the country in the right track? Do you have any message to them?
Well, my first message is how impressed I am by the young generations in Vietnam, actually also in the European Union. Since very old times, when I read Socrates from the ancient Greek times, you see older generations usually criticizing the younger generations, saying that they are not serious enough.
Oh, exactly.
They are not hardworking enough.
Exactly.
This is something we've been hearing for centuries, for millennials. But actually, when I look at the younger generations here in Vietnam, I am impressed by their determination, how serious they are in their studies, how creative they are, how determined they are to grow, to support their own personal development, that of their families, that of their country, to explore the world. When I see young applicants for our programs or to join the EU delegation, I have faith in the younger generation, and I encourage them to continue to think of themselves, of their country, of the world, and to build a better future for us together with Europeans. And I have the same feeling with Europeans. I was telling you the atmosphere is very different in Europe. It's not as optimistic, perhaps, because we are not in that same growth phase that Vietnam is experiencing. But the younger generation are extremely mature, extremely willing to work for a better world and to look at the future of our humanity. So there is hope, there is faith. We count on you, and I encourage you to go to Europe, make friends with the young people there, and cooperate so that we are all successful together.
Okay, so rất là cảm ơn những lời chia sẻ vừa rồi từ bác Julien Guerrier, đại sứ EU tại Việt Nam, có những chia sẻ vừa rồi về cuộc sống của bác sau khi nhậm chức tại đây, và cũng như là những chia sẻ của bác về cái nhiệm vụ chính của phái đoàn Liên minh châu Âu tại Việt Nam. Đó, nên là cũng mong các bạn chúng ta xem được cái số lần này, chúng ta sẽ góp phần nào đó cùng phái đoàn Liên minh châu Âu tại Việt Nam cũng như là đất nước chúng ta sẽ cùng phát triển trong thời gian tới để giúp đất nước chúng ta sẽ ngày càng phát triển, ngày càng giàu mạnh, lớn mạnh hơn. Và chắc đến đây sẽ là kết thúc của cái số ngày hôm nay xen giữa với bác đại sứ EU tại Việt Nam. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong những cái số tiếp theo tại xen giữa và 28 Unique.
Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại.